we get started, so I titled this the shiur or series, and we'll see how long we go for. Paterfamilias. We're going to be discussing avos, um, and I think the goal here for me, at least, is to start learning Mishnayos sort of like an adult. Like a lot of people, you learn Mishnayos in like fourth grade, fifth grade, and then
Speak for yourself.
I'll speak for myself. You don't necessarily come back to it in a concentrated way. The Mishnah is almost just a springboard for the Gemara, but the Mishnah, in and of itself, is is a complete body of work and was intended for its own study. Meaning, when Rebbe composed or redacted, whatever, we'll get into what Rebbe did with the Mishnah. He didn't necessarily anticipate that there was going to be a Gemara, right? The Mishnah was the whole thing. So maybe we should start by kind of defining our terms. What is Mishnah? Define it for me.
Yeah, the oral
Anything that's Torah Shabbal Peh is Mishnah? How is Mishnah different than Tosefta or Sifra or anything else that came out of the hand of the Tanaim? Is it different?
Mishnah's from Rebbe.
Okay, Mishnah's from Rebbe, so the different authors, but it's the same material.
Well, the thing is, there was dilution of the oral tradition from the time of Nevi'im to the time of the men of the Great Assembly. And basically, whatever they could remember that was undiluted, Rebbe recorded that. And when there was a difference of opinion, Rebbe, recorded basically what he thought were the primary and dominant opinions that were available to him.
Okay, so if you pull out a book of Mishnayos, are you going to get the law? Are you going to get all of the Torah Shabbal? What do you get? What is it? Is it a law book? Is it a codex of law?
It kind of is.
So it kind of is because it records some laws, but it's also weird because it records opinions that are not valid as law. Right? If you pull out like the Harvard Law Review, you'll get the law, right?
The ruling.
Right. Give me the final. We don't get that. We get, well, Beis Shammai says this, and Beis Hillel says that, and we have to, what are the klolim? Do we go after the Stam Mishnah? Right.
But these are, people who had a direct link to the generations of oral tradition past.
Okay.
And Rebbe didn't want to be like, mine's the only one. Like, this might be a valid version, and it's just like, we're not 100% sure.
Okay. So there's a lot there. First of all, scholars today still have no idea how to really classify Mishnah. They've been arguing about it for 100 years at least. In the 20th century, there was a debate between Albeck and Epstein about, is the Mishnah a code of law or not? So there's no consensus. But to start where I think Charles, you started, Moshe Kibbutz Torah Sinai, right, is the first Mishnah in Avos. When we talk about Moshe getting the Torah from Har Sinai, we're not talking about the Torah Shebechtav. We all know Moshe got the Torah Shebechtav. Moshe actually got two Torahs at Har Sinai, right? The Torah Shebechtav and an oral Torah, which Moshe was told to keep as only an oral Torah, right? He's not supposed to write down the oral Torah, even though we have it in our hands. So we have to sort of parse out, well, how did we get to having this book in our hands, right?
Our friends, the Romans.
Right. Well, what's the point now of the oral Torah? Why was Moshe given two Torahs? Why wasn't he just given one Torah with everything in it? So the answer is that the Torah Shabbal Peh is coming to explicate the Torah Shebechtav. You don't know what a pre-Eitz Hadar is? I'll tell you. It's an Esrog, right? You don't know which part of your body to circumcise when the Torah says that Umal es Besar or Laschem. So the Torah Shabbal Peh will explain to you what that is, right?
Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan gives an explanation why we need the explanation.
Right. There's a lot more in the Mishnah. There's customs, there's case law, but you get the gist. Okay, the word Masechta. What is a Mesechet?
Cut. I can see you say attractive.
Right. So yeah. What does it actually mean?
Conversation?
No.
A portion?
No. So this is one of those places where it's really cool how two languages kind of come together on this. In English, something that is woven has texture, right? That's why we call it a textile. That's where we get the term text. Mesechet means something that's woven, right? Our text is woven together, these different threads of halacha, of different arguments, etc., the same way a textile has texture, and that's what gives us a text. So a Mishnah technically means something that's woven together. The way I like to look at it is that the Mishnah is essentially from what we're going to get into from what. That's an excellent question. I think the point of the Mishnah, the reason Rebbe compiled it the way that he compiled it, is almost take a day in the base medrash. Meaning, if we could on a per topic basis sit in on the base medrash of Rebbe Meir and what was discussed regarding ksubas or nidarim or whatever, Rebbe took all of those and pulled them together into one ongoing dialogue. He fossilized a day in the base medrash around a specific topic. That's why the Mishnah doesn't read like Rambam in the Mishnah Torah is much clearer and more organized than the Mishnah, even though the Mishnah Torah is based on the Mishnah. There's a lot of structural similarities to the Mishnah Torah. The most chapters of any Masechta in Mishnayos is 30 chapters in Kalim. The most chapters of any part of Mishnah Torah is 30 chapters. The least in the Mishnah are 3 prakim. The least in Mishnah Torah. There's a lot of like stylistic similarities that the Rambam based his Mishnah Torah on our Mishnah, but the Rambam did it in a much more organized way. There is a halacha. That's every section in the Mishnah Torah starts with there's a halacha of doing teshuvah, of whatever, and then here's how many mitzvos are related to this topic, and then we're going to break those mitzvos down chapter by chapter to explain each one of them. That doesn't happen at all in the Mishnah. The Mishnah starts with me'emasai karnas hashma, right? It doesn't say, oh, by the way, there's a mitzvah to say kriya shema. It starts with, like, in media res. It starts with, by the way, when you are saying kriya shema, which we all assume you already know everything about, what time do you do that thing? Well, like, give me the information before you start, like, teasing it apart. No preamble, right?
But it assumes that you have knowledge of the Torah Bechtav.
Right. So here's the key insight for me, at least. To learn Mishnah, you have to have already learned it. That's a very interesting thing, right? You can learn Mishnah and feel like you have some understanding, but it's only when you relearn Mishnah, which is like to be shana, to repeat, right? That's when you are actually learning Mishnah. The first time you just need to sort of get your bearings of, well, what information are they throwing at me, and why is it in this order, and how does it connect to the Torah Shebechtav that I know about? But then once you've read through brachos and you come back to brachos, you're like, oh, okay, now I understand some of the concepts and I can get more out of it.
7.5 years later, in my case.
Well,
in your example of Krishma, something that you have it in the Torah.
Right.
You've read the parasha of Krishma.
Right.
So everything that's in the Mishnah, technically, if you have Klor, Chamisha Torah, you'll have some type of basis.
Ask that question again.
I'm saying, like,
the Torah says you b'shach l'cha u'kumecha, right? And the Torah doesn't really say what you're supposed to say b'shach l'cha u'kumecha. So we know that you're supposed to say Shema, but what is included in Shema? The Gemara even goes into, do we add, is V'hayim Shemoa part of Shema, not part of Shema? Should we add Parshas Bilam? Yeah.
Right, you physically read the Parsha of Shema in the Torah, right?
Yeah.
In Parsha whatever.
Yeah.
But it's kind of
meaning that your concept of Shema is in Torah, and now you delve and drop deeper in the Shishis and the Mishnah.
Right.
Is every concept that you come across in Mishnah, have you come across it in Chumash?
No, I don't think so.
That's what I'm saying. So how would you meaning?
There are.
You're saying that.
No, there are lots of halachos that are derabanan that you're getting for the first time in the Mishnah. In fact, we're going to.
I thought you were saying that when you're learning Mishnah that you've already.
Part of what you're doing when you learn Mishnah is you're taking the Chumash that you know and you're translating it into law.
Right.
The Chumash says this, but how do we actually do that?
Right.
The way we do that is delineated in the Mishnah.
What if you don't have it in the Chumash? Then what?
So if you Nidarim, right? I forget the lashon of the Gemara. It's like Hilchos Nidarim Porchim Ba'avir. That there's like very little information in the Chumash about Nadarim, but we have lots and lots of halachos. Where do those come from?
Right.
So the Mishnah is the beginning of teasing out where those halachos are either hinted to in the Torah or how they are added derabanan on top of the Torah. And we're actually going to see in the first Mishnah in Avos where this concept of you can add rabbinical stuff. Who says you can add rabbinical stuff? Right? Okay, so let's get to some facts. The Mishnah was compiled by Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, right? Not written by Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, but compiled from pre-existing material. That's an important thing. He is the editor, not the author. Approximately, we'll say, for the sake of making it clean, the year 200 of the Common Era is when Rebbe publishes the Mishnah. And there's some discussion as to how long did Rebbe's Mishnah sort of stay oral. We're going to see that a lot of the Mishnah, even though we assume that it was written down, a lot of it was still kept as an oral tradition. There are parts of the Mishnah that are designed to be easy to memorize or to rhyme, or there are parts of the Mishnah that are left out. And the Gemara says, Chasure mechsura b'hachiktani, right? The Mishnah must be missing a piece of information, and the author in the Gemara, will supply for you the Mishnah's missing information. Well, why didn't Rebbe put that missing information into the Mishnah, right? So we're going to see that part of that was an intentional process that Rebbe went through to keep the Mishnah very, very compact. We also get parts of the Mishnah that are clearly added later than Rebbe. Rebbe's son is mentioned in the Mishnah. Rebbe's death is mentioned in the Mishnah in Sota. So there are definitely the last Mishnah in Uksa, the last Mishnah in all of Mishnayos has Amoraim, has statements from Amoraim. So like well after the death of Rebbe. So there are parts of the Mishnah that were maybe either added on later or edited in some fashion. Rabbi David Tzvi Hoffman published a seminal paper called the Erste Mishnah, the first Mishnah and the controversies of later Tanaim. English translation, if you're interested. Essentially, what he argues or what he proves is that Rebbe picked a strain of Mishnah to sort of canonize, and that strain comes from Rebbe Akiva by way of Rebbe Meir. That most of what you're getting in the Mishnah, that there was an original, a proto-Mishnah, and we actually have remnants of the proto-Mishnah in our Mishnayos. I'll give you a couple examples. Let's pick Subis. So, in the 5th parak of Subis, I want to say Mishnah Gimel. Yeah. Hayavam enu machel b'truma. Asa shisha chadashim b'fnei habal v'shisha chadashim b'fnei hayavam v'afilu kulam b'fnei habal chasa yom echel b'fnei hayavam o kulam b'fnei hayavam chasa yom echel b'fnei habal eno achelos b'truma. We're not even going to translate any of this for you because what we want are the next 3 words. Zo Mishnah Rishona. This, says the Mishnah, was the original Mishnah. And then it continues. Beis din shel acharehen amru, an additional supplemental information. So the Mishnah is telling you that there was an earlier Mishnah, proto-Mishnah, the original Mishnah, as Rabbi Hoffman calls it, that was then taken by Rebbe, used as the basis for his Mishnah, and added to as Rebbe wanted to add additional information. This is not the only time where we have a Mishnah Rishona. We have Gittin, right? A whole bunch of times, actually, in the Mishnah. In Gittin, Perek, Hey. We're going to put this. Mishnah Vav. This is talking about a sikrikon. These are like armed robbers who like steal land, and you have to buy from them first. Do you buy from the owner and then buy from them? And again, zo mishnah rishona bezin shalachrehim amru halokech misikrikon notzin labalim, etc. So there are multiple times, and I'm going to spare you all the examples, where Rebbe, in compiling the Mishnah, indicates there was an earlier Mishnah, and I'm now adding to that Mishnah. I guess just for completion's sake, besides Rebbe, Rebbe had a student. Rebbe's one of his students' name was Rebbe Chia. Rebbe Chia is the author of the Tosefta. The Tosefta, let's say around the year 230 or maybe 250. The Tosefta has material in it that Rebbe left out of his Mishnayos. In fact, there's lots of information that Rebbe left out of his Mishnayos. What do we call that information that he left out of his Mishnayos? A Breita, right? Which means outside. And the Gemara oftentimes will bring a Breita and
calls it Mishnah though. Like it's
sometimes it's of the same historical caliber, and well, it's not clear if it's always in the same caliber or not, but it's of the same.
It wasn't included.
Right, it's the same antiquity as the Mishnah, and then what the Gemara is trying to do a lot of times is say, well, I have this statement, can I make it match Rebbe's statement? Like, why don't we just implicitly say if Rebbe left it out, then it's not halacha, right? How can you ever ask a question from a brisa? No, Rebbe made an editorial choice. He said, this is in and this is out, right? So then why are you asking me from the thing that's out? Rebbe said, that's out, so it's out. You're like, well, this thing that's out, can we bring it back in? No, you can't bring it back in. He left it out. What the Gemara is trying to do is say, well, I want to preserve this thing. I have a statement. I have a student somewhere that knows about this statement. He has a tradition. Actually, we should just read the Mishnah in Adios.
The Brisa is not Tosefta.
The Brisa is not the Tosefta. It's sometimes the Gemara kind of plays fast and loose with the naming convention. Sometimes it will call a statement from the Tosefta a Brisa. There is another trick question. Okay. So there's another Masechta called Adios. Adios is a Masechta that's kind of like Pirkei Avos in that it doesn't just have like legal information. It has, we'll call it additional agadic information.
Between Hillel and Shammai.
Right. So Adios is supposed to be everything that was said on the day that Reb Gamliel was installed as the Nasi. But in the first parak of Masechtas Adios, in the fourth Mishnah, it says as follows: "V'lama mazkirin as divrei Shammai v'Hillel levatola." Why bother mentioning the opinion of whoever we don't paskin like? The first three Mishnayos in Adios are, well, Beis Shammai says this and Beis Hillel says that, and we paskin like this or that. And then the Mishnah asks the question that we've been talking about: why bother mentioning the unpaskin like opinion, the opinion that's not law? Just exclude it, and then you have a law book, and you'd be done, right? L'lamed l'doros habayim, to teach the generations that will come later. Shelo yehei adam omid al dvarav. We don't want someone to persist in the wrong opinion. We don't want someone to say, well, I know you're paskening like this, but I have a Masorah of XYZ and I'm going to keep my Masorah. No, we know about your Masorah. We have a Mishnah here that tells us that your Masorah was not the one we pasken like. We pasken like Beis Hillel and not like Beis Shammai. So then why bother people? That's fine for Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. You've got a whole bunch of people arguing both sides of the case. But what about when you have a lone opinion? What's the point of mentioning a lone opinion when you've got everyone pasking against that? Everyone should just understand. If there's a yachid and a rabbim, we paskin like the rabbim. Holvein halacha elek divrei hamerubim. So I'll tell you, says the Mishnah. Shem yira bezdin as divrei hayachad v'yismuch alav. She'ein bezdin yachol levatel divrei bezdin chavero ad she'ehei gadol mimenu b'chachma u'b'minyan. Because there are going to be times where the Beis is going to need to rely on that minority report, that minority opinion. But if the Beis was hayagadol mimenu b'chachma, avalo b'minyan b'minyan b'chachma enu yachol levatel divarav, ad she'ehei gadol mimenu b'chachma u'b'minyan. Essentially, we want you to know that there may come a time where there's a greater Beis Din and they want to paskin differently than how the halacha has been rendered for years and years. If I have a minority opinion for them to base it on, they can say, oh, look, there was an opinion like this. We have something that we can rely on to paskin in a different way. So part of the reason that Rebbe is bringing down multiple opinions is because we need the historical data, either to tell you that the person who's showing up with a different minhag, where did it come from, and that it's no longer authoritative, or for the Beis Din to use it if they need to, an extenuating circumstance, whatever the case may be. There's a minority opinion. We say, oh, b'diavad, you can rely on this one, right? Where does that come from? It's the same kind of concept. Okay. I think we'll skip some of that. Okay, I guess we won't go down the whole story of Rebbe's history. Like, why was it Rebbe that was the author of the Mishnah? Why didn't somebody do it before him? Or what authority did he have to do any of this? Rebbe wasn't necessarily the greatest Talmid Chacham of his generation. So part of what Rebbe was doing in canonizing the Mishnah is asserting his prerogative as Nasi. Being the Nasi doesn't mean you're the biggest Talmid Chacham. There were bigger Talmidei Chachamim in Rebbe's generation than Rebbe, which Rebbe freely admits to. And sometimes the halacha is not like Rebbe.
But he wasn't the author.
I'm saying, but why is he the one canonizing? Why is he the one saying this is in and this is out? Why is the governmental office getting involved in the religious office? And the answer is there's a power play. There's a power play going on there. The Nasi was extending its authority into areas that was maybe beyond its authority originally. If you're the one who canonizes, if you're the one who says this is in and this is out, now you're part of the religious authority, not just part of the governmental authority. Does that make sense? In fact, the Chachamim did not always see eye to eye with, we should actually do this story maybe inside. Well, let's do a couple things. We have a Gemara in Baba Metzia 86a that says as follows: Rebbe v'Rebbe Nasan Sof Mishnah. That Rebbe and Rebbe Nasan were the end of the Mishnah. Says Rashi, Sof Mishnah, Sof Tanayim Ad Yemehem Amru Ish Es Dvarav Bebeis HaMedrash V'Hayu Talmidim Garsim Shamua Levada V'Lo Hayu Mesechtos Seduros V'Seder V'Kibeitz Al HaSeder. So in the times of Rebbe, every yeshiva had their own base medrash, where they learned the halachos according to the Rav in that base medrash, and all the students would take their notes, right? And everybody would follow whatever the rule was from their base medrash. There was no mesechtas ordered in any specific way. It was whatever you were learning and whatever your Rebbe told you was in. The kibbutz alas v'heim and Rebbe Nasan kalalu. They gathered everything together. Ha'omer b'doro shelifneim, what was said before them. The sidru esa mesechtos, and they organized the mesechtos. V'achareihem lo yosifu el ma'at. So this is a really interesting line from Rashi. And after Rebbe and Rebbe Nasan, only a little bit was added to the Mishnayos. But Rebbe and Rebbe Nasan did not always see eye to eye. And this is actually a Gemara I'd like to do inside with you briefly. This is a Gemara in Hurios. Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Okay, so the Gemara is talking about the procedure when the Talmidim are sitting in the base medrash and a rabbi comes in. How do you stand up, and who's allowed to stand and who gets to sit?
Depends on your row.
Amar Rabbi Yochanan, V'mei Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Nishnas Mishnah Zu. In the days of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel is where this Mishnah about standing up and sitting down was taught. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel was the Nasi, and Rabbi Meir was the Chacham. There's an office called Chacham. He's the biggest Talmid Chacham of the generation. And Rabbi Nasan, who we just said was with Rebbe as the end of Mishnah, he was the Av Beis Din. He's the head of the court. End of the time period, end of the people who compiled the Mishnah. So you have three people. You have Reb Gamliel, Nasi, he's the head of the government. You have Rabbi Nasan is the head of the judicial branch, the head of the Beis Din, and Rabbi Meir is the head of the religious branch. He's the Talmid Chacham. Ki have Reb Shimon Gamliel Hasam. When Reb Shimon Gamliel would come to yeshiva, Havokami Kuli Alma Mikame, everybody would stand up. Ki have Aili Rabbi Meir Rabbi Nasan, but when Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Nasan would walk in the Beis Medrash, Habukami Kuli Alma Mikamaihu, they would also stand up for Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Nassim the same way they stood up for Rabbi Gamliel. That didn't rub Rabbi Gamliel the right way. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Lo ba'ol mahave hekera ben dilei ledidhu. There should be you should know the difference between the Nasi and people who are not the Nasi, right? Taken hamasnisa, so they established this Mishnah that there should be a different order of who stands up for who. Ho yom lo hava Rabbi Meir Rabbi Nosson Hassan. That day where Rabbi Shimon Gamliel established this new way for people to stand up for the Nasi, different than everybody else. The two people who it affected, Rabbi Nosson and Rabbi Meir, weren't in yeshiva that day. So they show up to yeshiva next day. They walk in the base medrash, and people are not standing for them in the same way that they used to. Ami my hi. They're like, what's up with this? Amru lahu, hachi taken Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel made a new halacha, and we're just the guys that are fulfilling the law over here. Amar le Rabbi Meir le Rabbi Nosson anachacham. Ba'at avbezin naskin milsa ki lididon. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I'm the nasi, I'm the avbezdin, and you're the chacham. Let's make our own halacha. I didn't realize we could just all make halacha any way we want. Fantastic, right? Right. Rishon Gamliel's not there, right? This is perfect. My navidle. So what should we do? Namely gali uksin. Here's what we'll do. Let's tell Rishon Gamliel when he shows up tomorrow. We want you to teach uksin. Because we know he does not know uksin at all. Gali uksin, delaysle.
He does.
Right? You're going to see actually who does. The Gemara is going to tell you who does in a minute. V'kivan de lo gamer, and since he didn't learn it, namele miyamal gvuras Hashem yashmiya kol tihilaso. Who should be praised? Someone who's going to say the praise of Hashem? Someone who's yashmiya kol tihilaso. You have to know everything. If you don't know uksin, then you can't be. We're not going to let you into the base medrash and be treated with.
Shot.
Right, exactly. Lemala gvuras Hashem mi sheyachol lashmiya kol tihilaso. So Nabre, you know what we'll do? We'll depose him, right? Now we're getting into some weighty matters over here. Bahava ana av bezdin bi'at nasi. I'll be the av bezdin, says Runasan, and you, mayor, not only can you be the chacham, you'll also let's move. We'll creep into the governmental side. He's interjecting onto the religious side and deciding who gets to stand for who. So we'll depose the nasi, and you, mayor, can now be the nasi. Some interesting things you see from this are what's that?
Camp. It's the same situation. He's involved in the dispute.
Oh, right. He's no Gea. He's no Gea.
Same issue by Elizabeth Azani.
Right.
Right. And Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua.
Yep.
It's just a Game of Thrones amongst the Chachamim.
We're going to get into all of that. It's a very interesting
Game of
concept. Right. Who says you can depose the Nasi? And I thought the Nasi was someone who was descended from the line of David HaMelech, right? So you could just pick Rabbi Meir's now the Nasi? Like, how does that work? But it seems that was the plan. And unfortunately, the plan was thwarted by one Rabbi Yaakov ben Kudshai. Rabbi Yaakov ben Kudshai, Shamina Rabbi Yaakov ben Kudshai. Rabbi Yaakov ben Kudshai heard their plan. This is like Big Son and Sarash over here. Amar Dilma Chas V'Sholom Asad Milsa Lidei Kisufa. Rishon Gamliel is going to be super embarrassed when this happens, right? He's going to show up.
Talk to him about uksin.
Right. So also, so what's he going to do? He can't tell him, right? If he tells him, then that's embarrassing for the other guy. So here's what I'll do. Also, Yosef Achore Elise de Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. He goes and sits outside the window of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, and Pasha Garas Tana Garas Utana, and he's now chazering uksin out loud over and over and over again. Uksin is short; it's only three prakim, but it's still like over and over. He's repeating it out loud. Oh, I'm going to review uksin again. Amar. So Reb Shimon Gamliel kind of reads between the lines. My kadama, what's going on over here? Dilma chas v'sholom ika b'midrasha midei. Maybe there's something cooking in the base measure. She says. So he listened in to the learning going on outside, and he memorized uksin, good enough to teach it the next day. So Lamachar Amrule. So they sprung the trap the next day. Nasi Mar, why don't you Reb Shimon come up with Nasi uksin and teach everybody uksin? He's pasach ve'amar basa de ukim amr lahu iloga mirna kesefis sunan. So he teaches the whole thing, and when he's done, he's like, "You guys, you would have really embarrassed me if I hadn't just brushed up on uksin. I would have been humiliated." So Now he's still the Nasi, right? They can't depose him. He says that to them. I would have been humiliated, he says. So he's still the Nasi, right? Now they can't depose him. So he has the power. Pakid the Afkinhu Mimbe Midrasha. So he expels the Chacham and the Av Beis Din from yeshiva. He kicks them out of the yeshiva. So what do? What any precocious, brilliant student would do? Have a kasivi kushiyasa bepikta v'shadu hasam. They would make paper airplanes with their question. They're learning something in yeshiva. So Rabbi Meir writes his kasha on a paper airplane and he sends it into the base measure, right? What?
Paper plane.
Yeah, there you go, paper plane. The shadu hasam. They have a mifrek. The ones they could answer, they answered. They will have a mifrek. Pirkei v'shadu. If the Talmidim couldn't answer the question, so then he made another paper airplane with the answer, and he shot the paper airplane back in the base measures, right? Amalahu Rabbi Yossi, Torah mi b'chutz v'anu mi b'fnin. So they figured out, like, what are we doing in the base measures? The guys that know everything are outside the base measures, so they all start heading out. Amar lehem Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, nailinhu. So Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is now stuck. If I'm going to let them back in, miu niknasinhu delo nemru shmaisa mishamayu. I can't just let them in stam. I have to knas them. I have to punish them in some way. What I'm going to do is not let people say over the teachings in their name. So I'm going to erase the names of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Nassan from the chain of Masorah.
Pretty heavy duty,
right?
fight.
Yeah. Asikul Rabbi Meir acherim. So from now on, when you want to quote Rabbi Meir in a Mishnah, you say acherim. So a lot of times you'll acherim omrim. That's Rabbi Meir, right? Ul Reb Nassan yesh omrim. You see, you have a yesh omrim in the Mishnah. Who's the yesh omrim? Yesh omrim is Rabbi Nassan. Achvoluhu bechelmaihu zilu pasihu Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabbi Nassan azal Rabbi Meir lo azal. So in a dream, they got a message. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Nassan got a message in the dream that said, just go make up with Rabbi Gamliel. And Rabbi Nassan listened to the dream, and Rabbi Meir did not. Rabbi Meir lo azal amar divrei chalomos lo ma'alim v'lo moridin. Rabbi Meir's like, look, dreams, you don't take action based on dreams. Ki also Rabbi Nassan amar le Rav Shimon ben Gamliel nihida ahaniloch kamroch da abuch l'mahava av beis din shavinach nami nasi. It's enough that your father was able to make you the Av Beis Din. You also wanted to take over the Nesias, like it's too much. Masin la Rebbe l'Reb Shimon Berei. Acherim omrim ilo haya tamura lo haya karv. So now the Gemara fast forwards a couple of generations, and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi is teaching a Mishnah to his son Reb Shimon, and he says acherim omrim, right? Amar lo. So his son says to his father, to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Mihem halalu, shemeimehem anu shosim ushmosehem ein anu mazkirim. Who are these people? Who's these acherim, these yesh omrim? We're learning their Torah and we can't mention their names. So Amar le, Rebbe, this is Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the grandson of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Amar le, bnei adam shebikshu lakar kvodecha kvod beis avicha. There are people who wanted to uproot your honor and the honor of your household, and that is why we've erased their names. Amar le gama avos. So the son basically makes an argument back to them. Right. They're holding on. So essentially, the son like makes a plea on their behalf, and they restore them, and that's why you have places in the Mishnah where you have Rabbi Nassan or Rabbi Meir. But instead of saying Rabbi Meir says, it would be Amru Mishum Rabbi Meir. That's what that was sort of the pshara, right? Instead of the way the Gemara says it is Amru Mishum Rabbi Meir, but Amar Rabbi Meir lo Amar, right? That was how this was handled. So that's where some of the background on the fights between Rabbi Nassan, Rabbi Meir, and the line of the Nasi. But when I'm trying to make the argument to you that part of the reason that Rabbi Yehuda and the patriarchy is moving into the area of Mishnayos is because the rabbis and the office of the Nasi did not always see eye to eye. There were also skirmishes as to who gives the authority for smicha. Do you have to get permission from the Nasi in order to give smicha? If you do, then the Nasi is like the final say on who gets smicha and who doesn't. And now the Nasi is kind of encroaching again in the rabbinic territory where maybe the rabbis don't necessarily want that to take place. Okay, we haven't said anything about Avos. We should probably say something about Avos. So, what is
7 years ago?
what? Okay, what is
Our
Avos?
forefathers.
So we've argued so far that the Mishnah is, if not a code of law, it's a code that contains law. Avos does not contain any law. You don't have to do anything that it says in Pirkei Avos. If you one of the statements we'll get to is al tar b'sicha im ma'isha. If you want to speak a lot with your wife, you haven't violated halacha, right? Maybe you haven't kept to the guidelines or the recommendations of Avos, but you haven't. You're not going to get malchus. You haven't transgressed. You haven't sinned, right? So what's it doing? Why do we have Avos in the Mishnah at all? What's it doing here?
Constantly like ein derech eretz. So like if you don't have
That's from
that,
Avos.
right, absolutely. But maybe that's why it has to be here. Because you can't learn Torah properly if you don't have Avos. If you don't do Avos as well.
If you don't, I hear what you're
Just
saying.
Like say like with the Chacham, we can't be a Chacham without.
Right.
Right. You can't learn algebra if you don't know basic operations.
Right. Okay. Where's the name come from? Let's try that. So it probably means categories, like Arba Avos Nezikin, right? The Meiri, I think, has that approach.
However,
otherwise,
the Masechta doesn't start. Moshe.
No. The Masechta is about the Avos. Is about the. Well, let's get into it. Avos does not mean. There's nothing here about ethics.
There's nothing about Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov.
Right. Otherwise, how do you have like Avos de Rebbe Nassan, which is sort of an expansion of Masechtas Avos? Avos de Rebbe Nassan is not the fathers of Rebbe Nassan. It's the category, the learning, the chapters, something along those lines. I don't know where Pirkei comes from. The Masechta is Avos. Pirkei Avos. I take no responsibility for that. For ethics of the fathers, which is also very nice but very wrong. Okay, I kind of lied. Pirkei Avos comes from Raymond Martini in his Pugio Fidei, which was published circa 1278. So it's not a Jewish title. And Ethics of Our Fathers, the first time we get that is from Moshe Landau in his Siddur published in 1829, where he specifically says, Pirkei Avos, which is ethics of the fathers. Again, Pirkei does not mean ethics. You have Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer is not the ethics of Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, so what are the statements in Avos? Maybe we'll skip a little bit so we can actually get into some material. Okay, the placement of Avos in the order of Mishnayos is also an interesting question. It's in Seder Nezikin. What is it doing in Seder Nezikin? There are some opinions, and I think there's one older manuscript to this effect, that Avos was originally at the end of all the Mishnayos as kind of a coda to Mishnayos in general. But when people stopped learning the last couple, like Kachim and Taharos, so they moved it into Nezikin. It's also after, it's right before Horios, which kind of illustrates to you that even the Avos, even the people who are listed in Masechtas Avos, can make mistakes. That's the follow through. After Avos is Horios, to show you that even the greatest people can make mistakes, and this is what you do when that happens.
That's why Horios is that short.
That's right. So in general, the order of Mishnayos is from the longest number of chapters to the shortest number of chapters. There's a very strong argument to be made that the order of the Mishnayos is different than what it was originally. Originally, we'll leave that for a different time.
Because the rabbis, they don't want to talk about themselves making mistakes.
They keep it right, exactly, short and sweet. The sixth chapter of Avos is not really Mishnayos. The sixth chapter of Avos comes from Masechtas Katanas. There's a Masechta called Kala, which is where the material that was transposed to add it to another chapter, and that was basically because they would learn Avos in between Pesach and Shavuos, and you needed 6 chapters for the 6 weeks. So
Kal with the kuf.
Kal with the chaf.
The kuf.
There's no Gemara to Avos. Avos to Rebbe Nassan is not really a Gemara. It's kind of like a Tosefta version of Avos. It has everything that Pirkei Avos has, pretty much, and then a lot of additions. Okay, and we'll get into how we know Rebbe wrote Avos when we actually start learning Avos. Yeah, why don't we start Avos? Does everyone have a copy?
Yeah.
Okay. Who would like to do the first Mishnah?
Moshe Kibbutz Torah Sinai.
Moshe Kibbutz Torah Sinai. Yeah. Does everyone have it?
Masor Yeshua. Yeshua is the Canaan. Canaan the Nevi'im. Nevi'im. Saruha Lanshei Knesset Hagedola. Haman B'Shlosh Dorim. Oven Nesunim B'Din. Midu Chamidon Harbe. That's the cell of the Torah.
Okay. Let's get some translation, please.
Now this is received Torah from Sinai on the mountain. And he handed it over, he gave it over to Yeshua. And Yeshua to the Zakanim. So who are some of the Zakanim?
The elders.
Can you name some of them?
Who are the Zakanim? Yeah.
Can you name any?
I can't name it. I can tell you that in Avos to Rebbe Nassan we get more names of people in the Masorah. But no, I have no idea who these Zakanim are.
To the prophets. The prophets and the members of the great assembly.
Because right away after Yeshua, and you already have Nevi'im at that time. Right,
Yeah,
Yeshua,
the order is very weird.
As Nevi'im, there are Nevi'im in the Shoftim.
Well,
Okay.
let's translate the whole thing, and then we're going to go word by
over
word.
The men of the great assembly.
Who's that?
So those are Tanaim.
Tanaim.
That's the
they
Anshe
are.
Knesset Hagedolah,
Yeah.
which included some prophets and were the people who codified.
Well, I find we have Mordechai.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
I know
The Gemara.
So there's no mention of the Anshe Knesset Hagedolah in all of Mishnayos other than here. So again, it's like the Mishnah is assuming that you know things that you can't know other than from the Mishnah. Okay, so it was given over to the Anshe Knesset Hagedolah, and what did they do?
It said three things.
Okay, only three things?
No.
Probably not, right? Probably more than three things. But three things that we're going to mention to you in Avos. What are those three things?
As soon as you say, whether it can be deliberate.
Be deliberate in din.
Judgment. Yeah.
Raise up many Talmidim and make a fence around the Torah.
Okay. This I'm sorry, I have to do it. What
Okay.
happens when you make a fence around the Torah?
You protect yourself. It's a rabbana, any rabbinic.
You have a safer Torah.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Yes,
Okay.
but-
When it says Va'asu Siag La Torah, what about the mitzvah of Baal Tosef?
Okay. So let's take it step by step. Moshe Kibbutz Torah Misinai. Without anything else, we've read the first Mishnah. What is the point of the first Mishnah? Why is this here?
We have a Masorah. It
Oh,
comes
sorry,
from
go here.
Show
Show you
you connection from the Chumash.
connection from the Chumash, right? Moshe got the Torah at Har Sinai. So are we talking about the written Torah?
Where I think we're going to extrapolate on the written Torah.
So Moshe, when we say Moshe Kibbutz Torah Misinai, he got the written Torah at Har Sinai, not the oral Torah.
We don't know there's an oral Torah.
We don't know there's an oral Torah. Okay, so then I guess I'll ask it a different way. When Moshe got the Torah, written Torah at Har Sinai, did he give it to only Yehoshua? He gave it to everybody.
Yeah.
Moshe Kibbutz Torah Misinai Umasara the whole Jewish nation.
You got it more.
What did he give only to Yoshua? And Yoshua didn't teach anybody else. He gave it to the Zakanim.
Yeah, but when Moshe is gone, who's the same? I mean, not every single layman is at the same level as Moshe. Yeshua is.
Oh, so what? Okay, say it a little bit better. What did Moshe give Yoshua?
Everything.
Beyond the factual information, what did he give Yoshua?
the nuance.
He gave him the authority to be the next authority, right? This is what you're getting over here is a chain of Masorah. It's not just factual data. Moshe didn't just give, when we say Kibel Torah Misinai, okay, that, yes, He was makabel the Torah, but then we don't say Yoshua was makabel for Moshe. Umasora, there's Masorah now. He's giving over the Masorah to Yoshua, and Yoshua gives that Masorah over to the Zikanim. So there's authority that's being passed along one generation to the next over here. That's what's being given over here. And if that's the case, then what we're trying to do in this Mishnah, it seems like, is trace the Masorah that we have. We're here learning Mishnayos, right? Who gives the authority for this Mishnayos to exist? It comes from Har Sinai, right? That we can trace back generation after generation our Masorah from the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah all the way back, and like I said in Avos the Rabbi Nosson, we add in Shmuel and some of the Shoftim and other people who were part of that chain of Masorah, all the way back to where? To Har Sinai. That's the for me, that's still the one missing piece. Moshe wasn't Kibel Torah mi Sinai. Where was Moshe Kibel the Torah from? Or God. Moshe was makabel the Torah from God. What does Moshe Kibel Torah mi Sinai mean? Moshe was makabel the Torah from Sinai.
It's trying to teach us something.
Okay,
we already know that, I guess. Yeah, but it's a good question. Right.
Okay.
If you don't know, yeah.
No, if the reason for the question is if the point is to trace the Masorah and to say this Torah Shabbal Peh and the authority of the Torah Shabbal Peh comes from God, so maybe mention God in the first Mishnah.
You want to keep it here. Yeah. Once it's delivered from Shemaim here, you don't go back.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't like that answer. I think it's the question's still a strong question.
Wait, let me hear your answer again.
I'm saying once it's brought here, right? No one's going back up the mountain, going back up to Shemaim and asking Shilas and trying to figure out what's the shuvah this.
Right. That's true, 100%. And when Moshe dies and they forget all the halachos, they tell Yoshua, go ask God, and he's like, no can do.
Right.
I agree with you 100%. But would there have been? Could you still say that statement if the first Mishnah read Moshe Kibel Torah me Hashem, or Hashem Masar ta Torah LaMoshe?
You're saying the wrong precedent again. You're saying if you say it that way, then okay, then we could.
You can always go back to God if you mention God at the beginning.
You're putting him in the chain.
But don't you have? The Torah doesn't come from Moshe. The way I'm hearing from you is the last leg of the chain is Moshe. But that's not where the Torah really comes from.
It's sort of like a Lashinaki in terms of like.
Is Sinai? In other words, you're saying
why God is not an obscene
No. What he's saying is you can't say that it's from. You're saying from Sinai to teach you that it's from a place that you can't get. You can't go back to anymore. It's from Sinai. Once it was given at Sinai, that's it.
I don't think you need that though. I think Moshe Kibel, like it didn't say Sinai Masra LaMoshe. It says Moshe got as much as he could. And it could have said Moshe Kibel Me Hashem. He got from God. He didn't get all of it. He got as much as he could. And then he mustered over to Yoshua. And then he gave what he could say Moshe gave the whole textbook over to Yoshua. That's possible.
Mm-hmm.
But you got it from the word Kibel. You don't need Sinai.
Right.
Really,
I don't buy it.
So is a human
Get through the Mishnah, do the thing.
Okay, so the other thing I'll point out to you, which I think helps us get to an answer, maybe we'll do the answer next time, is really the language is imprecise. It's not Moshe Kibel Torah mi Sinai. Sinai is not a person that can give him the Torah. The literal translation of this is Moshe got the Torah from Sinai.
Right.
He didn't get the Torah from Sinai. Sinai is not the person giving him the Torah. He got the Torah bis-Sinai, right? At Sinai. So why is it Moshe Kibel Torah mi Sinai? So there's another time where we have a similar statement in Chazal about something being mi Sinai, and when you put those two together, it helps you get towards an answer of, oh, I see there's something about this phrase of mi Sinai that has weight and meaning to it beyond what we have on the surface over here. And please God, next time we will dig into Mishnah Aleph some more.
Mm-hmm.